this was the previous year Roundup Ready Harvextra alfalfa. And when it comes to termination, that creates a little bit of a problem in that you can spray conventional alfalfa with glyphosate 3 days before you harvest, go and harvest, boom, you're ready to plant your cover crop.
Sure.
But in this case, you would have to harvest it, wait for the regrowth, spray the regrowth, wait a couple more days for that to work. So you could be looking at almost a month of delayed planting that cover crop. So what we decided to try here is they knew they wanted to take this field out of production, and they cut it for the final fourth time. So then what we did is we let that alfalfa grow back some, and if you remember, last fall was also kind of on the dry side, and we decided, okay, we're gonna wait until it looks like it's gonna rain, and we had the co-op come just with a fertilizer spreader. Actually, the farm did this with their own spreader. Just surface spread the winter wheat and the winter rye into the living alfalfa, and the idea that between the canopy and the shading that the alfalfa had and the rain, we were hoping we could get that wheat and barley to germinate, which we did. So then we let that wheat and barley get established, and then we came back. The only choices to terminate the alfalfa and dandelions then is dicamba and 2,4-D. And so that's what we did in the fall. Being a dry fall and it got kind of late, we didn't get 100% kill on the alfalfa, but we got close to that. So we successfully figured out a way to shortcut, get that cover crop going into that Roundup Ready system. And that's what we see here.
Okay.
So kind of going into the field. First poker run stuff that we had, the wheat wasn't super obvious, but it was definitely there. And then as that next week progressed and up till planting time, most of this tan stuff that you see here was the winter wheat. It was there, it just was a little far behind. So this field also, we tried no-tilling it and made around, and we found that we just couldn't get that trench closed, the seed trench closed. And there again, with that vertical till machine that the farm has, we decided let's take a pass across it, just very lightly, tickle the ground, which allows that top crust to break open and allows the next 2 inches to dry out a bit, and it really improves plantability. You can see that thing was set. I mean, you look at this and say, was there tillage done? You'd say no, but there actually was.
Okay.
We set it very lightly. This wheat is still anchored in the ground. That's how lightly we tilled it. But it's just enough to help dry out. That was a very common theme that we had this year. We went from cool and the ground wouldn't dry to all of a sudden the ground got hard and really dry. So vertical till implement, in my opinion, does have its place in soil health and no-till systems, especially in those transition years when you're transitioning from conventional tillage to no-till. I think over the course of the years, the longer we do no-till and cover crops, I would bet the soil health gets better and better and better, and drainage gets better, so that maybe in a lot of years we would not need to use a tool like that. This year, it really was an essential tool, really improved plantability. This transition period, and this would have been an area that probably was a little wetter when we planted. You can still see where that sidewall compaction is from the double disc openers. And because this plant is currently transitioning from that seminal root system, that temporary seminal root system, to the nodal roots. Let's see if we can shake this out of here. You can see up until just recently, that plant was struggling. Everything's in a line, right? It's following that same line. The the double disc openers created with compaction. In a normal year, it's there, but it gets softened up and it doesn't get to be a problem. It started to get to be a problem last week as the ground got harder and harder and harder. Now that it rained, like we saw in this previous field, those roots can expand. And let's dig one up, you know, in a spot that wasn't quite so compacted. And the point I'm trying to make there is that's a temporary condition. That transition between the seminal root system and the nodal roots is kind of a delicate time in the life of a corn plant. And we would expect, in a very, very dry spring like we had, we would expect to see exactly what we're seeing. Now if we compare that to a worked field, like across the road, that ground was loose. It was much more drier, but it had enough moisture to germinate that plant. Those roots, those nodal roots, were unrestricted, right? They could just kind of go the way they wanted to go, sideways. But we can see here too, for a while they were restricted. They had a hard time going sideways. And then now, what do we see here? These nodal roots are going where they want to go. And we can see some new ones branching off to the side. They're going to be able to go where they want to go. So I often get the comment, yeah, but my neighbor's field right next door that was worked looks so much better right now. That is true in a dry year. The point we got to think about, was this a normal spring? No. What is normal for us is usually we get the crop planted, we get way too much rain, on work ground that corn just goes backwards. It looks pukey, yellow, stunted, but in this system, getting too much rain is really not a problem. We've got the ability to infiltrate all that extra rain. We're not sitting in 3 inches of mud. We're sitting in a just kind of a perfect environment. So what we're seeing here this year is not unexpected, but it is just a temporary condition.